soul. But the paper said I fit a different role. Stamped and filed in a system so cold. They never asked me, they just told. They call me person, but that ain't who I am. I come from people, from spirit, from land. It's more than a label, it's how they divide. But I know the truth deep down inside. People got power, people got pain. Persons of paper caught up in the game. Don't box me in, don't steal my name. I'm not just a number, I'm not their shame. People rise up, speak what you know. You're not a person, you're a soul that glows. Oh. Some say it's just words, don't make it deep. But names are spells and the cuts run deep. How they define you, how they bind you. But truth don't sleep, it'll find you. All this legal fiction, built on omission. They rewrote the books and hid opposition. But we're not words, we're not just names. We're breathing proof they can't contain. People got power, people got pain. Persons are paper caught up in the game. Don't box me in, don't steal my name. I'm not just a number, I'm not their shame. People rise up, speak what you know. You're not a person, you're a soul that glows. No barcode, no chain, no check in the file. I'm walking with grace, I'm walking with style. I'm not a thing in a courtroom slide. I'm the people and I won't be denied.
धागे न तिनक धिन 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 धागे न तिनक धिन.
Every day I wake, I make my mind up. I'ma be the one, be the truth, be the way. Yeah. Every day I wake, I make my mind up. Gotta keep my mind on the because they only telling their side of the story. Out here telling lies like they on Maury. Them poor rich kids get their money off on it. But down here in the hood, yeah, we know Forex. We growing up, yeah. We got the good. Good of them assets, good of my bag. Get rid of cash before the whole market crash. A news flash, just a blast from the past. We gonna smash now. Be prepared to hit the gas, yeah.
Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, put your game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel.
Try.
Blood eye, and we travel.
Woo. That's my child. Woo.
Blood eye, and we travel. Hey, hey, hit him with the higher. Yeah. Sherry no Haka from Virginia. Yeah.
I know I'm more because I'm blessed. I know I'm more. I passed the test.
We got to see with the true eyes. We need some brand new bright ideas. We got the hearts and some great minds, yeah. If we could all just be sincere.
Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, put your game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel.
Try.
Blood eye, and we travel.
Woo. That's my child. Woo.
Blood eye, and we travel. Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, put your game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel. Hey, hey, hit him with the higher, yeah.
Tonight, we are going to witness the most anticipated match in the history of professional wrestling for the heavyweight championship of the world. Are you ready? Wrestling fans, are you ready? For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, from the capital city of the United States of America, Washington, D.C., ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Black leaves in the Mississippi River. Black leaves in the Mississippi fire. Black leaves in the Mississippi choir. Black leaves on the Mississippi land. And we've got God and cotton, we've got sons and daughters, we've got grit and glory, we've got mother stories, we've got strength like towers, we've got hope and power.
God made woman with an iron hand, raised her up on heaven's land. God made woman with an iron hand, raised her up on heaven's land.
Strength like towers, we got hope and power.
God made woman with an iron hand, raised her up on heaven's land.
Aborigines, which means what? Black folk. But you never find a white Aborigine. Aborigines are called natives, or they're always dark-skinned people. You and I are Aborigines, but you don't like to be called an Aborigine.
Peace to the party. It's your homeboy back again with the news. Hey, so we heard what the people said. Y'all said y'all want a part 2. So we back at it from tribes to freedmen, the silent war on American Indians. All right, we got our special guest, Handsome History, pulling up. You know, we got the OG Mac in the building. So we're going to get straight to it. We already got everybody in the building. Mac, I'm going to go ahead and bring you up first. And we'll get it going. So hold on.
Yo,
Matt, what's up with it?
mic check, you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
What they do? Peace to the party. What they do?
Yes, sir. It's a beautiful day. We got hold on already. What do you say? That man speaking facts. Yeah, so that clip was from this movie that just came out called Sovereign. All right, so y'all should go check that out. I'm gonna go after I seen the clip. I said, I gotta check it out because you know this is right up our alley. So let's go ahead and bring up Travis, aka Handsome History. So let me bring him up now. Travis, what's up, brother? Can you hear us?
Hey, yeah, good to see you guys.
Oh yeah, no echo delay this time.
That's right. I got it figured out.
Okay, we in business.
I'm a quick learner. That's right. I'm a quick learner.
I love it. All right,
sure.
Hey, the people wanted us back, Travis. So
All right.
I'm gonna give a quick summation of the last video. So basically, we laid down, on some white slavery. We talked about the propaganda behind slavery, period, and we started showing the intermixture and how things were being conducted in the South. And so that we didn't get to touch on the Freedmen banking situation. And then, we're going to kind of lead up into some Reconstruction era things. So that's kind of where we're going to start today. So basically, we're going to let the people know that Reconstruction wasn't a rebirth. It was a hostile takeover, right? So we're going to start from there. So before we get started playing one of the videos, Mac and Travis, y'all got anything on it before we get going?
I'm just happy to be here, and I'm sure, it's going to be fun. It's always gets my mind going a lot. It's good times. Looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah. What you got, Mac?
Same here, man. It's been a minute. So the fact that we obviously are doing this series, and Travis, brother with the information on what we're talking about is definitely something I'm looking forward to having this conversation right now from the last time we talked. So let's get to it. You know what I mean? Because, I don't want to lose my thoughts either. I'm ready to get to it.
Let's do it. So here go the first video right here. Hold on.
It was the culmination of a war between two factions, one from the northern capitalist industrialist faction, the other from the southern feudalist agrarian faction. We have been living under the capitalist industrial faction ever since. This party was able to put together and finance the Republican Party in 1854, winning the presidential election just 6 years later. They were the faction that wanted the first and second bank of the United States. They also would have been supporting the European banks in their attempts to get state banks, and particularly state banks in the South, to pay their debts back to European banks such as Barings Bank. This faction and their money backers in the European banks got what they wanted after the Civil War with the 1865 National Banking Act. Congress would guarantee the payment of debts that were placed with banks in the national banking system. The Civil War also allowed this faction to eliminate the labor laws of the South, the slavery and indentured servant contract system in which masters and owners had to care for these employees for a set period of time, including sometimes life. The abolitionists would also criticize the South for the high price of their slaves and servants. In other words, the labor prices were higher in the South than they were in the North. And this would correlate to the criticism of the South for not being productive enough. Another problem the North had with the South was the South's allowance of the common lands. This allowed people to use common lands for small farms and to hunt and fish. In other words, they could maintain their families without working for anybody else or having a lot of capital to start a business. This also allowed people to run the range with cattle and hogs and make a lot of money moving livestock to markets across the South. That's why I have the saying, living high on the hog. This concludes part one of my video series on the Civil War as a reset. Thank you for listening. Handsome History out.
All right, Mac, what you got?
Well, it's crazy. The last image that showed up on it, right? It shows the range time frame from 1830 to 1861. If anybody saw that, you saw that, right?
Yeah, I saw it.
All right. So obviously, because of what Handsome History, Travis here, our guest, what he's been covering on TikTok, obviously that we've come across him and met him with the clips of this time frame of history. It's interesting. You got to do a little walk going into it, you know what I'm saying, to understand what they talk about dealing with the Indian removal, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
1830s is what they call the Indian removal time frame, you know what I'm saying? And what I want to point out, because as Travis is going to show in the videos that we're going to be showing tonight in our conversation, about the Aboriginal. And Travis, by the way, I like the fact that you said Aboriginal, you know what I'm saying? And, the 5 civilized tribes, they're being called, 5 civilized, obviously are confederacies at this point. And they have a network, they got businesses, they got land allotments amongst themselves, and they're moving, in a civilized manner based off the time frame. But when the ones that do get removed to go to Oklahoma, and we're going to go into that, tied to the original tribes of Oklahoma going there, 1830. So before the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek, and what they call today Seminole, right, were forced west by the Indian Removal Act. The region was home to the Osage Nation, dominant in the northeast and central areas. The Quapaw, that's Quapaw, the Caddo, Caddo, and the Kansa, like Kansas, Kansa. Now, these tribes were already in this area. Don't forget the Wichita. They can't leave them out because they're here too. The Comanche, the Apache, just to name a few of different nations of indigenous people that are in Oklahoma pre-1830. And most people might not understand that this area is considered tied to the area of what we call the Louisiana Purchase. Just to take you back a little bit further, 1803. So this region that's in between Mexico and what we call the 13 colonies expansion to the southeast, etc., is a particular region of indigenous people that are already there. And I want to put that out there because the original 5 civilized end up getting mixed with them. And we're going to go into that a little bit later, you know what I'm saying, as the clips go on. But that little bit of history, just so everybody understands that it's not like these people that are being taken from the southeast that decided to go, because again, we broke down last week that a lot of people didn't go and were labeled free people of color. But the ones that did go, they went amongst other indigenous people. And I want to point that out. And they're not the same culture, complexion in certain cases, etc. at this time, and now living in what we call today Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? So put it on Travis though. I want you got any feedback on that? You know what I'm saying? Or
I still am hearing the song. Why am I still in
you still hearing the music?
Yeah, now it's all of a sudden, yeah. But that's still going though, like they're ready to rumble. Is that just me?
You said ready to rumble.
It has to be.
It gotta be you.
Yeah, because I don't hear it.
Yeah, I don't hear it either. Anybody in the chat out there hear the music still?
Yeah, let us know. Let me know.
Hold on, because maybe I got like something. Maybe I have 2 things pulled up.
Yeah, do you have the YouTube playing too somewhere else? Check that.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Because you can't have both playing, it'll mess it up.
It'll mess it up.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Is it good now?
Ready to rumble.
Nah, it's like still going.
What the hell?
Maybe I should come back on.
That's crazy because I don't hear nothing.
No, I'm trying to double check, make sure I don't got nothing playing.
Nah, bro, I don't hear nothing. You don't got nothing playing.
Yeah, something's I got caught up or something in mine. Let me just come back up.
Yeah, try to come back in. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, go ahead and come back in real quick. It's cool. I'll finish this off then while we wait for
him. Go ahead.
All right, so after the 5 tribes arrived in 1830s to 1840s, right? The U.S. treated the 5 tribes as administrative nations. See, it's something you got to understand that's happening. Administrative nations, meaning that they're the more administrative contact they got now in this region to the other tribes I just mentioned that were already there. See what I'm saying? Make sure you understand that too. It says many smaller nations were forced into shared reservations or sub-agencies tied to the 5 tribes, intermarried or allied for protection, lost their own treaties, political identity, and becoming legally visible except through 5 tribes. So they end up getting mixed together, seeing like, you know what I mean, between this time frame. And then it's a civil war, obviously, we're going to get to that. And, you know, I got to give people that don't know Albert Pike. You know what I'm saying? That's the side note, Albert Pike. You know, Pike's Confederate treaties, because if y'all don't know, he's tied to those Confederate treaties. You know what I'm saying? Pulled not only the 5 tribes, but also some of the absorbed or allied local tribes, which is the Osage Scouts, the Caddo Auxiliaries, into Confederate service. After the war, the U.S. didn't renegotiate and separate treaties with those smaller tribes. Instead, the 1866 Reconstruction treaties were signed only with the 5 civilized tribes, and any absorbed groups were treated as part of them for land cessions, freedmen rights, and annuities. You know what I'm saying? So there's an identity shift. When we talk about that thing, I think it might, you know, we're going to go into that in a minute. I'm going to hold off now that Travis is back.
So okay. Travis, mic check. What we sound like? You good?
All good, all good. So
yes,
no
sir.
more music.
No,
something there's got up here. So okay. Well, I mean, where would you guys like? I mean, just so much to.
So I got a place to pinpoint us.
Yeah.
I got you. You.
What happened? Go ahead. Break them down.
So Mac laid out the foundation of the people and this Indian removal, right? So I got a question for you, Travis. So let's talk about the National Banking Act. Okay.
Yeah.
And so explain to people the importance of this in their tool of taking over the South. So explain how this federal system took
maybe
over.
Let's look at it. Okay, yeah. So, right, that's a great one. Let me just pull up some notes real quick. But
okay, cool.
Yeah, so this is during the war, right? So while the Civil War is raging, right, Congress finds time to pass the National Banking Act. So I always tell people, like, stop arguing about what the Civil War was about. Just look at the legislation they passed, because one faction had total control of this country for about 20 years. So they got to do what they wanted to do, is what I'm trying to tell you. So look at what they did after the war to understand the reasons for the war. All right. So the National Banking Act, 1864, right? It does two things. It might be two pieces of legislation, but two main things happen. One, this is where they're going to a single currency. Okay. They actually had state currencies all these years before. A bunch of state banks, including the great state of Mississippi, defaulted, stiff arm. So did Pennsylvania, even a northern state. 7 states total. They're pushing back. They're defaulting on these loans from Barings Bank, the Rothschilds, right? Big time money they're stiffing. So one of the solutions to that, from the corporate trust bankers, right? That's the guys at the very top, the real deep state we're talking about here, the way they think about stuff is, there's no way they're going to invest their money fully and go into this whole coast to coast, right? Because that's what they have in their head for years,
right? That's the plan.
They're not going to do it with 1/4 of the country now being on their system, and that way, when the sheriff knocks on the door to foreclose, they really are going to kick your ass and your family out of the house, and that's basically what we're getting at. So that's a big. So they're like, okay. First, we got everybody on this one currency, and at the same time, they create the first sort of network of banks, of U.S. federally backed U.S. deposit banks. And that way, anybody's money in there, if that something goes south and the bank doesn't pay back the bigger banks and all that, they now know they can go to Congress. What I mean by they is the European bankers know they can go to Congress, and Congress will write a check, and they're going to get made whole. That's what those two acts are about. That's what they're getting done with Lincoln's Secretary of the Treasury. His name is Salmon, as in Solomon. Salmon's a variation of Solomon P. Chase. Yes, the namesake of that Chase Bank.
Yep.
Officially, they won't say he's
infamous.
An owner. That's some other guy who's a buddy of his, named in his honor. I'm telling you how that works through some other accounts that his name's not on. He's a big stake. They're a big player, I'm sure, in the foundation of that bank. And then one more thing on Chase is he becomes the Supreme Court justice during Reconstruction to rubber stamp whatever the radical Republicans, and that's who's really taking over the country. Is that it's not even a majority of the It's so crazy when you really get into it. Well, I would estimate it at about 25% of the voters were really into this, but they destroyed the South and the Democratic Party, which also took down the Democrats in New York. There's a whole thing going on there, but it's literally like what they did. It's genius. They created the Republican Party out of a bunch of money in 1952, 54, and they got the presidency, 6 years later. Then they're getting the money, $300 million in those days, dollars, to fight the war. That's how, it was the national debt. So you got to have these banking acts. If they're loaning all this money to win that war, they're going to set up a system of laws to make sure they're getting paid back.
Correct.
All right. So that's all that's really going on, guys. And that's the forerunner of, then the Federal Reserve, like 40 years later. But this is way more important than the Federal Reserve, because this is what sets up like all the money to flow in after the war. Yeah. This is like, now this is one big old country, and $1 that you're paying your taxes in. And yeah, it's a bigger change than, because we're 7th, 8th generation living under. We think it's normal. Right. But when you read the history, the closer to it, like when the people that had lived in the previous system, you really can feel the differences. So yeah, I'll stop it at that. There's so much I could talk about on that.
Okay, so I got another alley-oop for this is for you and Mac, really. So basically, to all the indigenous crowd out there. So follow what I'm saying here. So basically, you get the National Act, right, for banking, basically a federal banking system. But when this is laid out, the South, not only the South, but the South most popularly had big state banks, very, very powerful state banks that were backed by the land. They did different types of deals with their customers versus with the national bank. So I'll give you a couple examples. So you got the Bank of the State of South Carolina in Charleston. It was one of the biggest and the oldest. All right. And they had millions backed by cotton and plantations. Okay. So our ancestors had this land, and in order to improve upon the land,
can I just interject on that?
Yeah, go ahead. What you got?
Also backed by the slaves. That's
correct.
The third. So the slaves are valued. So the three assets are the cotton, the land, and the slaves. And they wrote insurance contracts to protect slaves based on the type of skill set they had. They had it all coded like the modern labor cat. I just want to make sure people realize how important that is. So.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Hey, wait a second.
Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, in the time frame, Travis, outside of what you just said, as far as what's being evaluated, what about the silver and gold, being that's the commerce of that time?
Oh, like how they're like the currency in America at that time?
Right, because the Freedmen Bank and all that stuff is if you're going to use any kind of currency, it's silver and gold being exchanged.
Okay, well, right. So then that's like the whole history before the Civil War, different state bank notes, and then they would go for a couple years. The federal government, like, we're going to try and go like hard currency and, create a fractional dollar to silver ratio, but it would never like hold and all that. And so, so also in the South, besides using hard currency, they really bartered a lot. So most currency most of world history is only really for the big businesses and the big, like the average person. Like, we weren't going around with $2 to buy shoes and $5. Like, currency was for like big purchases.
Right.
So that's another reason to understand that these are really important laws that they changed with the national currency, and then later you have to pay your federal taxes in dollars. You can't give us 10 pounds of corn anymore. This is huge. This is like
changed everything.
This is huge. This is it's not like, they knew what they were doing. They knew this is going to get rid of 80% of them. We're going to take they know. That's the setup. So big difference.
With that being said, so everybody, just in case they might not know, the Freedmen Savings Bank in 1865 to 1874, created after the Civil War, was formerly enslaved or free people of color, and did hold silver dollars and coin deposits, but its management tied to powerful financiers that he's talking about, these banking systems, and led to massive losses that stripped wealth from the freedmen communities, including many, Southeastern people. I'm talking about with the allotments and the taxes and everything connected to those financiers, that those silver deposits, silver notes, and silver dollars, But what the Freedmen Bank was, it was chartered by Congress. Obviously, if y'all didn't know, 1865, or the silver dollar, this is what collected millions in deposits, by the way. And this is the silver dollar and other coinage, which were common forms of savings for laborers and veterans, meaning those who fought in the Civil War. Right. You know what I'm saying? So the allotments of land, along with everything you said, Travis, is obviously tied to still this coinage at that time. That's why I wanted you just to, what your thoughts was on it. But I just want everybody in the audience listening.
Well, that gets interesting. So I'll tie it to what I have have a good knowledge on is let's tie these two together. The first question, when I on my video about that, I called it an economic heist. I said this was planned. The Freedmen's Bank was set up to do exactly what it did. And you want to know how I know that? Because they created the national banking system already. Right. They wouldn't let the freedmen into it. So that's why I know why. It's really simple, man. You got here's this other system that they would not let them in. We got this special system just for you that we plan on in a decade or so blowing it out of the water, and that just makes it easy.
And Travis,
play the game. So that's how you know it was a.
So to make it plain,
it was never meant to help. Sorry.
No, you good. So I just want to double down on that point. So when he says that this new system didn't allow the South to participate, so these state banks that were run by the people in the South were decimated when this happened, and they wouldn't allow these state banks to become a part of this federal banking system. What you got, Matt?
Yeah, obviously, and I know Travis is gonna go into him. I see we're sort of shout out to Little Fella in the chat to just put JP Morgan, right? Because literally I got it right here dealing with obviously tied to the videos that we're gonna be playing. I think you're gonna be playing one or two in a minute, right? So it's gonna be talking about what Travis, you mentioned JP Morgan, I'm just saying, you mentioned them, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, within that being said, the bank's
Still alive.
leadership, yeah, right. Hey,
Yeah,
I know everybody
that
likes to
part.
talk about the Rothschilds and the Rockefeller,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah,
J.P. Morgan
they let him get off
systematically,
scot-free.
like like whoa.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
the banks. It says the bank's leadership was increasingly dominated by political connected
Right.
bankers and speculators,
Right.
including associates of J.P. Morgan's network and national bank system. Which the national bank system, like you said, and how they're doing what they're doing, and what they got to get their money back because of what they just went through that war, how they finance certain things. They're looking at it like you're gonna have to find a way to get a hold of what's going on with the resources in the South. You know what I'm saying?
Right. They
I
invested
mean, them
all into
states
all the
that have
railroad. Right. They invested onto the railroad stocks, blah, 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 did all that. And then it was really clever. Then when the stocks would go bust, they'd declare bankruptcy. That means they don't have to pay anybody back. But these guys already made their money. You got to remember, these guys, J.P. Morgan, were selling the stocks, you know, they were using the Freedmen's money and credit, right, to buy a whole bunch. It's like what you watch Bitcoin, you know, and they're pushing it up, and then
That's the speculators.
Yeah, and they made a ton of money, and they got away with it.
got away with it.
They definitely got away with it. So real quick, let me we got a super chat from Mike TV. Thank you for educating us on the Moravians and Lord proprietors. Keep up the great work. Hey, appreciate you, brother. That's love.
Peace to you, Mike TV. Peace to you. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's love.
Means a lot. Means a lot.
For real, for y'all seeing that we live here, y'all showing love. I appreciate everybody that's live with us right now and after the fact. Too, within this, these managers are speculated with depositor funds. And like he just said, railroads. See, the railroad system at this time is where product, after you get it off the river system or a port, they needed to get it to where it got to get it to with their expansion of the system of the network.
Correct.
Financing wise, they have to pay for this, you know what I mean, for them to get what they need out of it, right? So obviously real estate and railroads is the dominant thing in order for you to expand what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Trade network.
Trade network, exactly. So it replaced the physical silver, by the way, it replaced the physical silver and coin reserves with paper promises and bad loans. You know what I mean? Saying, as he just talked about how people ended up that put their money in that and they thought it was, go ahead though.
I love that you said corn. Did you say corn reserves?
Yes, corn reserves.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not corn.
Okay,
corn,
yeah.
sorry.
No, because the reason it's interesting to me is they would base their money though off of corn, off of cotton. So that's why
agriculture, the product of the ground,
yeah.
Right. My fault.
Right. Again, the only time like you typically needed currency would be the guy that's exporting the cotton. He's dealing internationally or something like that.
Right.
So that's why the whole system is so fascinating to realize. First of all, how much debt was involved, like just layered on with debt and everything. But then also how much like little bit of cash was involved. It's like this whole just like paradoxical thing. And then here's the North, like we're not having that. Like we're not going to build out the country on that system. It's basically they didn't want this. It was feudalism. That's why I keep telling people the South was still practicing. Really was like a feudal system. They're really very similar.
So let me make it plain for people. At this time, the South was living in a communal, everything it's still kind of on a tribal basis. Land was still being shared. People didn't have to go work for other people unless they wanted to because they had enough food to sustain. They could trade and they could barter with other people of what grew off their land. They didn't need money to come in to pay electricity bill. You get what I'm saying? None of that they didn't need a currency like that unless it was to make a major purchase. You're going to buy some land somewhere else. So you know what I mean? You're starting a business, different things, but we gotta understand the time. And so the North was coming, they were trying to get to the industrialization age. They wanted to get to be able to build these companies and these factories, but in order to do that, they needed to get the land and they needed to be able to fund that land. So this is what Travis has been breaking down. The National Banking Act was birthed so the Freedmen Bank could be created. It's not a coincidence. They were laying the steps out on what was going to happen. You know what I mean? So everything we do is going to build on that. So let's go ahead and just get to the second video. I can already tell this is going to be a heavy hitter right here because we already cooking on the first video.
One video down. See how
but before
go ahead.
Start though, because just on the Freedmen's Bank, you want to really cook it up. Is that who's the I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought on Frederick Douglass.
Okay.
So the conventional story is they wrote Frederick Douglass in at the end. No. So one of the main guys in charge, this Garrett Smith guy on the board, is actually money guy. He helped fund Frederick's like first couple books or something and all that. And Frederick Douglass even thanks him in like one of his books. Okay. Frederick Douglass is a part of it. He's not a sucker. He's a part of it. He's a great example of it, probably likely an African American, not an American Indian. Right. Okay, he's in with them. Okay. Garrett Smith's the name. He was hanging out with Garrett Smith for 30 years before, and Garrett Smith was the head of the Freedmen's Bank to start. Yeah. Right. So yeah.
Mac, I know you got some. What you got?
Because see, I told y'all, I saw last time the part 1, I told y'all about Richard Allen. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But see, Richard Allen and Frederick Douglass is connected. You know what I'm saying? They're tied to the AME Church.
Yeah, guys, right.
Zion.
One more name. Then later on, there's a General Howard. Okay, Howard comes on board. Guess who Howard's the namesake of? Howard University. So what are the HBCUs that they created?
What are they really about?
Don't be mad. Don't get them back, bro. Don't do it to them.
Hey, so look, Travis, we've been breaking down for years, and we're honest about history. We know that people that look like me and Mac participated in the system as well. It doesn't have a color behind this.
Right.
This is what people got to understand.
Hey, people that look like me participated in with Hitler. I mean, it's like, it's
gotta be honest. We gotta be honest.
It's like the most meaningless factor to make a decision about somebody on.
Correct.
It's like amazing how it's become. Yeah.
It's an American thing now. You know what I mean?
Hey, it is.
Shout out to Quint Smith. He sent a super chat for $20, man. Appreciate your support, bro.
Yeah.
Shout out to Quint, man. Shout out to Quint, man.
Quint always come around, man. Yeah.
Shout out to Quint, man. Shout out to you,
Quint
man.
gets a video on TikTok.
There you go.
Send me the topic. Send me the topic. DM me the topic.
Okay, you hear that?
Yeah. You hear that, Quint?
Yeah, for sure.
It's handsome history. Hold on, let me put
you.
Yeah. I'm gonna put your tag in the chat real quick. Handsome history TikTok. Because a lot of people been asking. I want to make sure everybody. Handsome history on TikTok. You put him in, it's gonna come up. Make sure you follow him, subscribe, the whole nine. Support everybody who's trying to put this information out the right way with nothing but the intent of putting out the truth. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about.
Yep.
So all right, so let's get to this second video.
Yeah, play the next video before we talk anymore. Time fly.
Bank was a tool of economic destruction in order to decimate the remaining wealth of the Aboriginal Americans who were the central employees, managers, and even part owners of the plantation economy of the Southeast. Let's dig into it. First of all, some indisputable facts. A, while the bank was chartered by Congress, it did not have any government oversight. In other words, the United States Treasury did not even have one employee looking at these bank books. B, there was already another banking system created during the Civil War, the National Banking Act. This is very similar to the banks we have today, where you have some form of insurance on deposits and you have backing by the Congress of the United States in case of financial crisis to make people whole. Remember, these agents are working on these plantations now on behalf of the federal government. You got to play nice with these guys if you want to have any decent life in this new system being thrust onto you. So between them, as well as you have them.
This was me that paused it. So check this out. For y'all might have to zoom in on this for the viewers. This is for the viewers. I want you to look at these branches and look where they are. So if you are familiar with the Mississippi Mound Builders, if you are familiar with the Appalachia, if you're familiar with any of these areas, look at where they set up these banks and the locations. It's all throughout the Southeast, mostly, because this was replacing the state bank. So I just had to put that out there. Make sure you look in on this because this was on purpose. So let me let them finish the video.
The missionaries, this is the influx of these Protestant missionaries, right? The Methodists, the Baptists, and the Presbyterians. They're part of the team, the clique that's taking over what were formerly Indian villages and towns and infrastructure. Okay, they were controlling your destiny now. And so if they're sitting there saying, hey, this is the best bank for you, this is where you should deposit your money to demonstrate that you're a good citizen that's loyal to the new system, then demonstrate that loyalty by placing your deposits, placing the titles and the deeds to your lands in these banks that we have created specially for you. It's the Freedmen's Bank. It's just for you.
The Freedmen Bank.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Wait. Oh my God. All right, this map. Well, go back to the map.
Okay.
Don't pull that down, bro.
Yeah,
you gotta play the whole thing back. Hold on. Because this right here, now, bro.
I got you. Let me get to it.
Leave it right here.
The biggest one's in DC. The big one's in DC, but everything else.
Imagine that.
Yeah, leave it there. You see what I'm saying? Now, I want to ask Travis. So, damn. Okay, there it is. All right. So when you make this video, right, in this area right here, the red dot, because this might be small for some people out there. You see how you got branches and deposits? Can you break down this map for us?
Oh.
And how you got the dots and everything? Or
no,
that's give us an understanding of me. Go ahead.
Yeah, this one just kind of obviously shows where they're located, but the bigger it is, like the more deposits it had. So that's why, the two. So that red one, it's Washington D.C. and I think New York. So those are the two cities sort of outside of the South that had a branch. But then you see the rest of it's basically in the deep South. You don't even see much along the Mississippi River, and that was on purpose too. So this whole idea was like, to make them is also part of resettling people. It's all part of like the scheme that they're doing in Reconstruction. Yeah, it's really interesting.
The reason why also too I asked that because of the fact that when people might see the red dots in the more northern areas, you know what I'm saying? But like you just said, the most central places we're seeing this is in the Southeast. But
but remember, DC is like the South. I mean, it's really
Virginia,
Maryland, all that. Yeah.
Mason-Dixon
line.
line.
I remember. Yeah, and even Maryland was part of the. So Maryland, Yeah, absolutely. So there's a ton of old, and again, it also shows you that slaves were making money. So like when people, there's so many
making money.
Yeah.
Why would you have banks for people with no money?
What you talking about? Wait a minute. Don't tell them that.
That makes 0 sense.
Slaves making money.
Where are they getting their land titles from that the government confiscated? The government confiscated somebody's property. We're calling them freedmen, and we're saying they used to be slaves. So, what does that mean about them? Maybe. Let me think about this.
Maybe they were landowners.
Right.
Hey,
it just, I don't know why this isn't taught because it's just right there, like in the.
It's all there. It's not hidden.
It's actually not hidden. It's actually not hidden.
Because the Southeast, though, because how again our title of part 2 of this joint from tribes to freedmen, and people debate about this a lot. Obviously about who the freedman is because of the indoctrination of the system. Obviously prior after Negro rule, we shout out to Amos. I give my shout outs who's been on our show and showed us certain things or built with us a certain way, like how you are right now. We understand you literally kind of showing us for everybody that's been watching our platform for a little while now, different guests we've had on here. Particularly because it's connected to things that's happened before it and what happens after it. Which goes into Negro rule. It's history. I ain't being rude for anybody out there think I'm saying it for no reason. But at the same time, for you can go Google that, by the way, what I mean by that.
Right. It's a real historic period.
It's a historical period. That's why I'm saying it that way. But in the sense of what's going on is you're showing how the Freedmen Bank, which is going into obviously, 1865, how it shows the time period to 1874. And these regions is where these banks are at, that you're talking about in the joint. It's just like people got to pay attention to where this money's at, in the time they didn't come out of nowhere, right? Like
they pick these areas
just
for a reason.
Up out of nowhere, right? Why are you banking so much over here if all the tribes and all the stuff going on is supposed to be all over west of the Mississippi? You see, ain't nothing west of the Mississippi. What time frame is this, real quick, Travis? Before we play the clip for everybody to understand.
Yeah, because we're only getting into like 1865 to 75 at the latest.
Right. And I want to make sure. Go ahead. You keep going, Monte. Keep going.
Real quick before we go on, we got Mike TV. He said another super chat. He said you guys should make this a regular show with you three. Great gems. Hey, appreciate the love.
That.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're taking the feedback. Oh yeah, for sure. It makes it all worth it.
We know that y'all liking it. We is.
Yeah, respect to the party and the work. Okay, appreciate you, day son. But all right, so that's the second video. So let's go ahead and roll into the third one. Okay. Keep on cooking.
That was it for the second one?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was a
Okay,
shorter
see
one.
how
That was a shorter one.
it caught me. See how them
Oh,
TikTok
wait, we
videos.
got one more.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, we gonna
Well,
play them back to
I
back.
was just, well, yeah, well, just to
Go
the
ahead.
point though, like, again, like, obviously, like, where's the money coming from? Like, why would they even set up this system, right? So clearly, and I believe the numbers, guys, it was about 3.5, million slaves. So that's a lot of people. And now what percentage of them deposited money? But we're talking about a lot of money,
Right.
and then also a lot of property title. And that's the thing that really gives it away. I just want to say one more thing as indicative too, like if you're trying to assess some things, is American Indians, are they African Americans, like who's who and all that. I want to lay out here for a second that if this was a bunch of African Americans that they had freed, then what would have been the problem then with just letting them roll on and just be the great farmers they are as long as they pay their taxes.
Right.
But if they are coming from ancient indigenous bloodlines that you have to displace and you have to dismember or you have to hostage, and it's way more than just what we're talking about, then all this behavior after the war makes a lot more sense.
Oh, I got something for you.
Hey, it makes a
I
lot
got
more
something for
sense.
you.
Hey,
We're
real
gonna
quick
be able
though,
to show
Matt.
you tonight, real quick.
Yeah. So look,
Yeah,
I'm gonna give y'all
yeah.
a spoiler alert. Before
Go
we
ahead.
leave here, we're gonna show you exactly why they did what they did. We're gonna give you the answer to the test. Just stick around to the end. I guarantee you that. So
it's gonna be shown.
yeah, we cooking tonight. So hey, look, let's go ahead and get to the third one, man, so we can keep and stay on our time schedule. Hold on real quick. Let me play this. All right, so this video 3, let's get to it.
Freedmen's Bank was a tool to confiscate the remaining wealth of Aboriginal Indians who were not part of the Native American reservation system. Let's look at how the Northern Unionist, evangelical Protestant, abolitionist, capitalist banking clique performed this confiscation. First of all, let's make sure most people understand that the Aboriginal Indians were experts at farming and agriculture, especially in the Southeast. They'd been there for generations, thousands of years. And contrary to popular opinion, slaves were valued as assets. So therefore, they're often paid in cash. They're also allowed to sell plantation product for their own profit. And they even inherited parts of the plantations when masters died. So there's plenty of wealth accumulated over many generations. Okay, so here we are. It's 1865. They've decimated the South. There's a bunch of Union Army soldiers on all the plantations. They've created this Freedmen's Bureau that you see here. Okay, and look what this bureau, these agents are allowed to do. Okay, they're able to control access to food, education, legal aid. All right. The South was literally starving. They destroyed the plantations at the end of the war. Had to, be agreeable to these Union military officers as well as the agents of the new regime, the Freedmen's Bureau. The first way they funnel them into the Freedmen's Bank is they pretty much exclude them from the new national banking system that this Congress, this abolitionist Congress, created in 1864. And that national banking system actually had some deposit insurance plus serious oversight by the federal government through the United States Treasury. As a matter of fact, I've looked at the legislation. It actually had a very high capital reserve requirement of basically like 30%. They had to purchase Treasury bonds from the United States Treasury, all right, and then keep 30% of those bonds with the government, with the United States Treasury. Meanwhile, they create the Freedmen's Bank that has none of these protections, none of them. So the next thing is that the banks, the Freedmen banks, are located in strategic places where the big plantations were and where there were clusters of these Aboriginal communities that had been, quote unquote, set free. Really what had happened is their land and their jobs have been destroyed by, the burning through of the South. So what kind of assets did these Aboriginal Indians possess? Well, they still actually had land, or they had work land, and under their tribal systems or under the old Confederate state systems, they would have had titles and deeds. Here, your only option is to give us the titles to your land, and we'll put them in our safety deposit boxes, right? And we're going to use your land as collateral to make loans and investments. But of course, they weren't making loans and investments to the Southern freedmen, to this class of people that was depositing with them. They were taking this money all right, and investing it in railroad stocks and steamboat shipping company stocks and new electric stocks. All this stuff is being done by the shareholders and trustees of the Freedmen's Bank. There was no oversight by Congress. There was no oversight by the Treasury. There was no insurance. Okay, then they, after 5 years, actually changed their own corporate charter to allow them to invest in anything. So it goes on and on what they were doing here. So how would these Union Army officers and these Freedmen's Bureau agents, sell this to them? They would tell the Indians that this was created specifically for this. This was an Indian-friendly bank, right? Okay, and besides the Bureau and besides the military, you also have this new group of like evangelical Protestant groups coming down, in particular the Methodists, the Baptists, and the Presbyterians, and they're like the unofficial social and cultural arm of the Union. Okay, they're coming down there, they're taking over old Indian infrastructure, their schools, they're taking over their mills, they're taking over their farms. Okay, the schools they would turn into schools to train the new white European people in the system as well, because they were actually being imported from all over Eastern Europe for the most part in the Caucasus regions. So they actually had to be trained in this new system of land ownership and surveyed land and, frankly, how to farm. Meanwhile, they had other schools turned into re-education and indoctrination schools for the Indians. That's what was going on. And these are the three religious organizations that were deeply, on the record, tied to it. So once they've accumulated and attracted all these land titles, these deeds, okay, therefore, when the bank collapses due to investing in initial public offerings and crazy stock market things, they're able to just turn around and go, oh, sorry, your deposits are gone. Now, the next question might be, well, okay, that stinks that I lost my dollars, but, I had a title in there to my 200 acres of land in this part of Georgia. What happened to that title? Oh, funny thing happened after the bank went bankrupt. These records got destroyed. This is literally what they did. This is on the record. This is how the rulers of the United States that won the Civil War, these wonderful abolitionists, these moral Puritans, these Methodists, Baptists, and Presbyterians, this is what they did. There's nobody else in charge but them. Just read this one. It speaks for itself. Here's a specific example of the 1874 DC branch fire. Of course, that was the largest of all the institutions in the Freedmen's banking system. This shows what happened in the southern branch. They literally closed their doors overnight and immediately began burning the records. I mean, they have these accounts in the newspapers of Union officers and contractors clearing out the offices, destroying files, and boarding up buildings. Then even the National Archive, whoops, we lost them. So what can you say? There's nothing good to say about this. Here's another slick way. In 1870, they altered their charter so that the banks, the individual bank branches, no longer need to hold original deposit certificates or land title receipts. So you're native, or you're an Aboriginal Indian. You own a couple hundred acres. You brought to them the paperwork, which would be a title, okay, a land title receipt, and that's the only one you have. We don't have copy machines back then. You have to understand what banks meant. And historically, way before the United States of America, that's why banks in ancient times were actually subsumed under temples. Okay? Yeah, that's right. Temples and churches were stores of wealth. So now that all the records about the property titles are destroyed, they now have an excuse to resurvey the land. The county government takes control of it, and then they conduct property sales to two types of people: very wealthy northern banks who are buying up large tracts. Example of Sanford, Florida, a unionist general, rich guy named Sanford, buys 12,000 acres and starts to colonize it with poor people from Sweden to start a celery farm. Yes, that is true. No, it did not succeed. Okay, so now you see the setup, right? They've confiscated their money wealth through the bankruptcy. But the way to confiscate the land wealth is they have to lose the titles, right? So then they burn all the information after the bankruptcy. Now you have the excuse to resurvey, reorganize the land into parcels, smaller parcels, and now start to sell it off. Selling it off to the big banks to start new plantations and colonies, and selling it off to this new group of imported impoverished Caucasian, Eastern European white people that they're flooding the country with at the tune of about 500,000 people a year from 1880 to 1920. Thank you for listening. I hope you found this enjoyable and interesting.
That's heavyweight right there, bro.
I got mean face, bro.
Hey, so before y'all get into it,
now,
before y'all get to it, because I know y'all chomping at the bit, because we got people that follow us that's still new to this. So I just wanted to explain to them one thing. So last time we broke down different treaties, a lot of them that happened during Indian removal. So basically, let's use that dancing rabbit that we used in the first video. So if you didn't go to Oklahoma in 1830 when that treaty was signed, you now were allotted land from the so-called government. Okay. This land that you had under title, if your ancestors then went and entrusted that with the Freedmen's Bank in that area, this is how they would have lost their land just that quick, between 40 years basically of being granted something they already own through this government document, this deed, and then turning over this deed to the Freedmen Bank. This is how they were systematically erasing from some of our ancestors. Go ahead, Mac or Travis, whichever y'all want to go first.
I'm gonna let Travis go first, man. Let me hold off because I had to compose it. That was that was so good just now.
That was heavy.
So good. I was like, I'm gonna compose my thoughts. You hear me? So go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I had my say with the video, but I'll give you a little
I want some more. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I mean, it's such a downer. I have to do it in bits.
It's a downer.
Yeah, I can't. But so I'll just maybe frame it a little for maybe the concept of it. So here we go. So Reconstruction equals liquidation of the old feudal order. Slavery tied capital to land. Laborers were assets on the books like buildings and livestock. Planters had to maintain them. That system didn't work for this new banking class. What they wanted was labor that cost nothing until they needed it and which could be turned off at will without responsibility. This is what we're all used to. It's called free labor. This is what they foisted onto the South and the rest of the nation afterwards. So emancipation wasn't a moral act. It was a financial kill switch. It instantly wiped out the collateral base of all these Southern planters, and we know how many of them were American Indians and mixed and all that, right? It also then wipes out the ability of the clan or more extended family ownership, tenancy, and common ownership, all that. Wipes all that out. You have to go on one of the Indian reservations to have that system. It freed up 3.5 to 4 million humans with nothing to do. So you got 4 million people looking for work, right? And they're bringing in 250,000 or so white guys from Europe. So look what they're doing. What does that create? A new class of landless, disposable. And the big thing that the abolitionists want is desperate workers. I'm telling you, you can read what they write. They're all about creating anxiety. This is all on purpose. Freedmen went from being maintained capital to independent liabilities. You get the difference?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather be, if I got to work for someone, I'd rather be considered an asset
all day long
than a liability. You understand? You understand, okay? They had to pay for it. Now, all of a sudden, these same freedmen who knew how to do the work, knew how to run plantations, now they got to pay for their own food, tools, shelter, like everything's in cash. That forces them to go to banks to get loans. Then they got to be able to pay taxes. So you just see like
forcing them to the debt system.
And boom, and then that's it. That's really what's going on. And then that's what, they knew what they were doing. So,
okay. What you got, Matt?
All right. So, okay. All right, so,
stop, my boy.
What? Let me tell you something. You know what I'm saying? He's shy. You heard me like, oh, Maranatha type shit. Someone put it on the, you put it across the screen. I forgot who it was, but it said something about Civil War 1865.
Yeah, I think that was Derek. Yeah.
All right. Well, just so everybody knows, you see it come across the screen.
Right here.
Address that first, right? Yeah. It didn't start in 1865. I'm gonna correct that. So that's not when it started. It was between 1861 and it ended in 1865. All right. So obviously the Freedmen Bank comes in the year after.
Mm-hmm.
The Freedmen treaties take place in 1866. You know what I'm saying? Abraham Lincoln, you know what I'm talking about? So at the end of the day, that 1861 to 1865 is the time frame. Now I always gotta throw this out there for the Southeast. You know what I'm talking about? Because for the Gullah, for the Yacht Seminole, for the Maroon folks out there, and all the 5 civilized tribes that didn't go west to what we call Oklahoma, there was a war. Yeah, there was a war going on outside from 1812 to 1858 that cost the same government, they say, the most expensive war in their domestic ideal of the situation, right? So now all of a sudden, 3 years after that, from 1858, you got a civil war that breaks out, you know what I'm saying? And that lasts only 4 years, but you had almost 100-year war running, you know what I'm talking about, technically, in the Southeast, of people that did not, even though we talked about free people of color, it's on the record. 3 Seminole Wars, the Gullah War, it's on the record. There's people still in the Southeast warring, even though there's people in the Southeast also as free people of color living on plantation lifestyle and going to what we call Negro conventions. Shout out to Carter G. Woodson, you know what I'm saying? And Richard Allen, who also was part of those conventions. And that term African that they were debating about between 1830 and 1864, you know what I'm saying? During the Civil War and all, they having conventions, Negro conventions. Shout out to Richard once again, because he brought that to our attention. I give credit to where it's
Hey, I think he in here.
Oh, shout out to Richard then. Once again, I keep
it's him right here, I think, right?
Oh, shout out to you. I think that's him.
Shout out to Richard, man.
You know what I'm saying? So you know, up there in Philadelphia, you hear me? So Sakamexum, you know what I'm talking about? Like that whole situation, though, either way, when we get into just the information of it, just make sure y'all know that it started in 1861 and it went into 1865. Now, fighting for both sides, indigenous people and what we call Blackamoor, Sephardic Yehudi, coming out of what we call already with anglicized Christian names, by the way, because what he broke down earlier, Presbyterian, the Moravian, the Methodist, that are bringing in people. And yes, they're swarthy, you know what I'm talking about? They're dark-skinned people too. That's mixing in with these Aboriginal people that he broke down too. That's now becoming what we call Christianized Indians because of the mixture. You know what I'm saying? The whole East Coast, from the Northeast down to the Southeast. But particularly, you're going to keep it real because it's tied to the Freedmen and banking situations and everything tied to them wars. We're talking about what we call the Southeast, with the mound building territory, you know, the SECC. You hear me?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Southeastern Ceremonial Complex.
We're talking about that territory. Yeah, we're talking about that territory. So in that situation of indigenous ancestry, shout out to Muskogee, right? Shout out to Saponi. You hear me? It tell you that it was over 180,000 served in the United States colored troops. All right, that's on the Union side, dealing with this war between 1861 and 1865. Now, also, their enlistment was tied to the Union promises of freedom, land, it was broken, hope of securing recognition as full citizens after the war. That happened.
Yeah, they got allotments.
Right? Now, Confederate South, some 5 civilized tribes, which is obviously, y'all know the 5 we talking about, already removed 2 Indian territory, sided with the Confederacy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It said some, not all, some. Now, hoping to pressure sovereignty and slavery, labored in their best behalf. You know what I mean? Put it like that. And in the situation of the Confederate often enslaved an unsubscribed group of people from the Southeast too for labor. You know what I mean? That's why the dispute was in the situation, because of where the money and the economics is coming from. I don't think people recognize that either. But either way, the aftermath, so we can get to the point and we can keep it moving. Legal freedmen, stateless in practice, freedom without power, because they already went through this war getting guaranteed promises. Oh, they got the people in the Southeast, they signed treaties for the ones tied to those treaties out there. You know what I'm talking about? And anyways, in the situation though, the 13th to 14th, 1865, 13th Amendment, you know what I mean? Yep. That's why people think Civil War, 13th Amendment. 14th Amendment, 1868. 15th Amendment, 1870. New census. But at the same time, I want to just point that out, dealing with the Civil War and the aftermath and the beforehand, because obviously going into the same time frame, I think his next joint that Travis got, that is really going to go right into that what we want to literally expose for the record, you know what I mean? Because it's on the record, the Dawes Act, the Curtis, you know what I mean? Curtis. But anyways, you know, go ahead.
I got some question came in, and we're gonna shoot this one to Travis. It's from George Myers. He sent a super chat. He said, "This is awesome info. is 1877 Reconstruction started the real taking of Black Native American land.
I'm not sure what you mean exactly by 1877. Is that a piece of legislation? Maybe I focused
I think he's talking about the
era.
Yeah, let's just go with the era because I believe he's talking about the Reconstruction Act. So the year may not be spot on, but I think I see what he's saying.
Yeah, so it's definitely when it becomes heavy. So when you read like the reports from the Freedmen's Bureau guys and they're reporting up to DC, they make a point at a either they're never calling anybody Indian, like that's not what you say, right? And so it's like everybody's but they're also not, when I look at them though, they're also not calling them African much either.
Right, that's a fact.
At that point, it's black. It seems to me, okay. So at that point, I'd say it's black and Negro. It's going from Negro to black is what I'm thinking. Right. It's like Negro's been around, right? They've been working that in for like a couple hundred years, right? Like trying to erase everybody's association, right? Like what's a Negro? Right. That could be anybody black. Doesn't mean they're so okay. Right. And now so you do see that change in the wording. All of a sudden it starts to become black, but you're not seeing it called Africa either. They're just like these random black people here.
hey, the Negro Convention tell you that, so you're not wrong for anything you said because they got it on record. The Negro Convention. Okay. They were debating literally about not using African.
Yeah, you're spot on.
Or black. It's really what they debated about in the records.
Oh, well, that's good to know. I'm just like drawing deductions from like what I'm reading. I've never studied that like as a topic, but when I read other things, I'm like, they're not calling them. They're calling them just black, and you can kind of tell they're trying to figure out what the label, like you can see it's kind of going on.
it's formulating at this time. So
it's formulating. Yeah.
So basically, to answer your question, George, that year, I was 1877 specifically, no, but this time era, yes, it's definitely happening. And we've been breaking down every way in which that was happening. You know what I mean? It was done by the pen, not by the sword. That's what we have to continually and truthfully. I've done a lot of research on the Civil War. Now, what's funny is me and Mac, we did a build a while back and we brought up this guy. His name was Whip Pete. He was supposedly a slave from Louisiana, right? And he is the only person with a real deal, a so-called slave picture. But the funny part is that this was during the Civil War. So when you go look for pictures, because cameras were invented slightly before the Civil War. So why, when you look for Civil War images, the ones you see is about this so-called slave? What about the generals? What about the people who fought in the war? It would have been, so basically what I'm getting at is, it looks like this war, this is just my opinion based on the research, was really a financial war because there's plenty proof of that. Now, when it comes down, because I have ancestors that so-called fought in this war, but when you go and look into the details, all you see is a whole bunch of financial activity. So it's pretty crazy. You know what I'm saying? I really encourage you guys to go look into the history of the Civil War and what really happened, because what Travis is breaking down is a lot of financial implications, right? That would devastate you without even ever having to pick up a gun. If I take away the way you feed yourself, I don't have to shoot you. You know what I mean? I'm hurting you for generations. By taking away your land, taking away your indigenous status, taking away the way that you live. So, it's way bigger than what people think is versus just a gunfight, basically is what I'm getting at. So appreciate you though, George. Travis, Matt, you got anything else on this topic before we move to the next one?
I got something.
If you got something you want to say, go ahead.
Because you're talking a little bit about maybe what is the Civil War conceptually? Right. Yeah. I think it's financial, but it's also it's the ending. It's like, so you mentioned they were fighting out west, right? Mm-hmm. West. I mean, way more violence is going on. 30s, 40s. I mean, I've done deep dives on California, what they're doing out there. Once the U.S. got a hold of it in 1851, the hostaging begins immediately. The whole thing. And that's all going on before this war. So it's almost like you got to remember. If from the perspective of like these Protestant, Puritan, capitalist, this faction, right? They're like, man, okay, we've got like 3/4 of the country now, but there's just this solid mass of American Indians that are just lodged in the South, right? Economically, socially, they ain't going away. they're not, you know what I mean? It was the hardest group they handled. Like, everybody's got to think that through for a second. Like, so what was the most powerful group? It had to be these guys. Like, they held on to the power the most. Spanish came, French came, English came, then it became the United. They still were there. They still maintained power, like, in a real way. You know, they didn't quite, they didn't dissolve into the, you know, the mix so much, right? Like the Iroquois and everything that started in the 1600s, right? Pretty interesting to think about, and then add back to, well, exactly who are these melanated dudes that they're calling freedmen? Because that don't, again, like, would they have gone through all that effort for a bunch of Africans with no bloodlines, no ties to the land?
It makes zero sense.
This would make zero sense. Unless you're going to tell me all those other tribes out west were African too, then you got to tell me how they're, so, you know, again, it just, things just add up better when you some of the ways we're looking at, is all I'm going to say. Other things fit in the puzzle.
No doubt.
That's all.
What you got, Matt?
Hey, real quick to what he just said before the war, and hey, the term is being used. I put it in the chat just now from our news. Shout out to yourtimesparty.com. Go to our news channel. It's a quick plug. At the same time, this news paper clipping is a historical report, likely from the mid 20th century, summarizing the research of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history, by the way, and drawn from his book, The Free Negro Heads of Families in the United States in 1830. Now, the clipping is going to be tied to, obviously, where they said Negroes owned plantations before war. Book declares by Milton Scott for Associated Negro Press, ANP. I'll give you all my sources. Key claims in the article is just 1 in 7 Negroes were free in 1830. Thousands of Black people in the U.S. were free before the Civil War. 1 out of 7 Black people in the U.S. in 1830 was free. Now, don't forget the contracts they might be signed to, like the people that's not free, by the way. You know what I'm saying? Who they working for, by the way. You know what I mean? But still, many of these free people lived in the South, not just the North. You know what I mean? Some free Negroes owned land and slaves. A number of free Black individuals owned large plantations, 10 to 200 slaves in some cases, thousands of acres of land. This is described as a revelation, contradicting the common assumption that all Black people were enslaved before the Civil War. See, examples from Dr. Woodson's research, Carter G. Woodson. So why are you gonna put it on me? Don't put it on him. You heard me? A man in Lexington, Kentucky, was worth $200,000 in 1830. Thomas Lafon, Lafon, New Orleans, had $500,000 in real estate. They give you some names. Marie Metmore. I might be spelling it. I mean, my pronunciation gets you.
Yeah, you already know.
Mettoyer, surname, family of the
Acquire. They might be from Louisiana.
Yep, they from Louisiana.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it says owned 50 slaves and 2,000 acres. You know what I'm saying? All right, look. Martin Donato of St. Landry Parish in Louisiana owned 89 slaves and had personal property worth $46,000. These are just some, examples. You know what I mean?
Right.
Tied to that newspaper clipping when they tell you about Negroes own a lot of land in the South prior to the Civil War, even though we're showing how they lost it. I'm just saying. But these people aren't, so if the people that's owning the land and the people that's working the land are obviously working for who?
Yeah, so let me clear that up too, because I see somebody, and this. Oh, first off, my bad, George Myers, bro. You showing a lot of love, bro. Definitely appreciate that, man. You always been tapped in with us. Appreciate that for real. I wanted to get to American right here. Isness the slaves were their family. So I wanna put something out there because we keep using the word because it's easier instead of having to try to be politically correct. Now, anybody out there, if you go to Black's Law Dictionary, you look up master and slave. When you hear the word slave, it does not mean an African capture, bro. This is simply an employee and an employer. That's what slave meant. It doesn't mean you're in bondage. It doesn't mean you getting whips and chains. It's just employee. So when you see the word slave, just cross it out and think employee, because legally at this time frame, this is what it meant. Employee replaced the word slave, but they mean the exact same thing at this time frame. So when we use this, it's because we don't want to have to break down every time what we're really saying, but we expect y'all to be walking along with us on this journey by now to know that slave does not mean an African person. It means somebody who works on somebody else's land And this could also be family, because the etymology of family is a servant. Okay. I'm just telling you what it is. You can go look this up. If you want to debate, you know where to find us. We can do that on another video. But we just want to make sure we make it clear on what we're saying. We're not talking about in bondage Africans and saying a slave just meant you worked on somebody's estate, whether it was your family or somebody else. And by being a slave, you could be paid. You could have all kind of stuff, because what was being, we laid this down in the last video, slavery in the South, the people who were employed, they had a host of benefits and was living damn good. This is why the North wanted to come and trample on this system, bro. Y'all got to get out your feelings and just do the research, bro. Just do the research. It's going to point you where you need to go.
Hey, and for T-Tone in the chat, yes, indentured servitude falls underneath the same situation.
Yes, yes, great
contracted situations, you know what I'm talking about? Like 1099 W-2, you know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, and also along the lines too, I read neat anecdotes where like the buying out of your freedom often could be pretty inexpensive. It'd be like, all right, boss, like, you know, the next 2 months do an extra 10 pounds a day of this and you're free. Like I was reading anecdotes like that. Like, I don't think we realize how, this is like, you know, feudalism and like, I mean, there's a reason like they were, you know, the slaves were known, you know, like the Southern black guys, like, you know, chewing the fat, even to this day, right? Like I know, like I grew up a little bit in the South. I'm an SEC.
You know,
I'm a Florida boy, but no, I'm around enough. I was around enough to see the difference. Like, yeah, these guys are cool, chilling. Like, and now I realize, that's like, and then you realize the way that they manage farming and agriculture by memory and seasonal, and they're really into timing. And that's another huge thing. Is like, hey, boss, there's nothing. We're not going to plant this even another 10 days. So yeah, we're kicking back, chewing the fat, right?
Yeah.
All these phrases, right? I'm like, I thought that was like a.
They really mean something. Yeah.
Like, the whole damn thing's borrowed, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Bacon, at least. Can I get bacon? But anyhow,
Pass the bacon.
There's a lot when you just read books from the era. I would suggest reading books written before the Civil War.
Correct.
There's just a big difference, and just you know, you're going to see stuff, that confirms the conventional thing, but you're also going to see so many things where you're like, wait a second, like, I've never heard of, you know, about that before. And that's all, you know, I'm going to say about it.
Okay. All right, Mac, if you guys, what you got? When we go to the next video, go ahead. If you got it.
I'm going to try to give me 2 minutes with this.
Go ahead, run off.
Because I see in the chat that people obviously are dealing with this, you know, maybe not understanding the history tied to what we call free people of color. And shout out to Little Feather, you know what I mean?
But can I just say something though? What he's saying though, we have it worse because that employer can get rid of Little Feather tomorrow with nothing. The slaves, that could not happen.
At will employer.
That's right. You can read real estate in the South, selling plantations, comes with the 100 slaves. If not, they got to find a buyer. I'm telling you guys, like this was unionization on steroids. It was feudalism. If you understand feudalism, you'll see that it was the same thing. Feudalism. You couldn't just run a guy off the land. I read court cases where an old man was too old to do work, so they finally went to court, and the judge is ruling like he literally compared it to marriage, and he said, "You have to through sickness and through health, boss. You got to keep this guy."
Right.
The morals of it.
The morals were written into the legislation. So I also suggest if you want to dive deep, just go read the laws they wrote. Go read them, and then you can debate whether they enforce them or not. But read what they put on paper and call it the law.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
And since you said that, like I said, real quick, I need 2 minutes. We can go to the next video because the time's flying. We have a good conversation.
We can do a whole 2 hours on this right here.
Easy, right now, easy. You know what I'm saying? Just
free
on
labor
that.
versus slavery, right?
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
So
turn our world upside down.
Which one should I do? Because I see we got some video. I'm trying to keep this in line with my notes.
Yeah. Don't skip. Don't skip.
You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to skip nothing, but no, I ain't had this in there. But he said what he said, so I'm going to go ahead and let it fly.
Yeah.
So the entire legal category that people be understanding, trying to come to understanding of, is free people of color, right? So in the Americas, is rooted in the Roman manumission system. All right, Roman manumission system. Free person of color predates the Americas when it comes down to the system. Roman watch. You need to understand this right here. So the freeing of slaves by their masters, like employer, master. See what I'm saying? And it says, which carried through Spanish, Portuguese, French, and eventually the British colonial law. Here's how the lineage worked. Roman law, origins under Roman law is called jus gentium, the law of nations. Enslaved persons could gain freedom through manumissal, vindica, freed formally in the court-like ceremony, manumissal censa, like the census, listed as free in a census, manumissal testamento, free by master's will. A freed slave became a libertus, freedman or freed woman, legally free but still a client of their former master, patroness, you know what I mean? Could hold full Roman citizenship at first. Their children, however, were born free citizens. How it survived in the colonial sense in Americas, right? The Iberian crowns, Spain and Portugal, inherited this system and applied it in the Americas. A freed African, Moor or Yahudi, Sephardic Jew. Foro is meaning free, Portuguese. Liberto, Spanish, as far as being a part of their system here in America. They were free, but still under the crown's patronage, taxed, registered, and controlled. The French adopted the same Roman concept. They use the term gens de couleur, libri, you know what I'm saying? In all their colonial areas. Free people of color, which later on becomes freedmen, obviously in our system, tied to the free people of color. And obviously the indigenous people, once they're Christianized, as we told you last show, and how they got baptized and registered, they go underneath this jurisdiction. And then they become a part of the free people of color category. And in the system of already in system from colonial side, going back to the Roman time frame of how history works lawfully, that's how we all end up in the same category today. You know what I'm talking about? But go ahead, play the next clip. So I ain't gonna hold you. I don't
but real quick though, on what you just said though. No. Okay, go ahead. He said we all ended up in the same categories. One more thing, the big difference nowadays, and so in the new system after Reconstruction, there's only two categories economically. You're either an owner or an employee. What we don't understand is under the older system, there's like 5 categories, and depending on which category you in, you had more labor protections. So what I want to say is basically we are all at the lowest level. So being a free man was like you have no protection, which means you need to have some money, a cap. That's the type of person to become a free man, whether you're talking in Great Britain and feudalism or even in the United States. And to his point, you had about an equal number of free blacks in the North and the South. I've got stories of where they went up north and it was like, whoa, this is way too hard. They came back. So there's a whole thing about it. But they also had those levels of labor protection, and what they did, all you are is either an owner now or an employee. Now I know there's but just consider how hard it was to unionize in this country, how hard it is now. Like, just think about how much effort it takes to do things as a group if you're not an ownership group forming a corporation. Just think about that a little bit. Stop.
It's all good. So so George Myers, bro, we're gonna have to bring you on the show because you're going crazy. George Myers is going crazy. He said Lee Cummings truly proved that slave masters were black Spanish, black French, and black Geechees. Facts. Yeah. So
George been paying attention. Shout out to George.
George, you been see that's what I'm talking about, bro.
That's what
so
I'm talking
Travis,
about
we had a guest. He does a lot of work with us. Lee Cummings. He basically had a book exposing the black Europeans, right?
Yeah, of course. That's what the Huguenots are. All the Puritans, man. Once you understand Iberia and what Iberia was, and then understand Iberia is really who settles the United States or Americas in North America. Man, I mean, then it's just this makes this is easy. It's like easy to see, like
it's the missing link, like he said. It's the missing link, bro.
Iberia, as you said, Travis. Before we even go any further, it's like they gave us this continent called Africa, but everything tied to the slave trade is tied to Iberia. In its origin, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I know.
And people make it seem like there wasn't people they call Negroes. The term Negroes tied to Portuguese and Spanish, which is the crowns of Iberia. So it's like, what are we doing?
And the Portuguese are the sneakiest ones. Like they've hidden their role. Like nobody.
So crypto.
Portugal.
Crypto.
And they're a total independent vault. Like you think about how they fought off the Habsburgs, and I know they did it, but then they got in that deal they get to take over all of Brazil. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Negro de Terra. Yeah.
And I guarantee you, they took all
Lusitania.
their wealth. They took all their wealth with them out of Portugal at that time. They put it all over here in Brazil. And that's who's been running Brazil ever since. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about,
Black
Travis.
European.
Yeah, you own it, bro.
What does it mean, man?
Watch
What does it mean?
Yeah, it just
my family
it wasn't you.
They be mad when I tell them this.
Yeah, we were getting closed off the land in England. How are they doing to us? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Seriously, when you think about everything that's going on in parallel, both sides of the Atlantic, regardless of skin color, but it's all bad. It's bad for 90% of people. If you're not one
correct.
of the top,
If you're not the elite,
if you're not the elite, and if you are, but you're on the losing side, you better intermarry quick, right? That's what
correct.
you know is going on in the Americas with the indigenous. Like, shoot, I see the writing on the wall. I see the tidal wave coming. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Okay, so hold on. Let's see. So let me clear something up for American. So American, I wasn't, that slave comment wasn't, you were right about what you were saying about a slave being family. I was referring to somebody else in the chat with the African part. So nah, it's no pressure. You was on point. So Miss Sherry says, yes, the Portuguese were everywhere but nowhere in our history. That's the perfect phrase right there. Everywhere but nowhere. That's spot on. Right.
Okay, if you don't copyright that, that's the name of a video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, listen. Know why? Because Negro de Terra is tied to what they call Novo Lusitania, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's above, right? So Brazil, Negro de Terra, Novo, which is New Lusitania. So a lot of people don't understand that Lusitania is a Roman term.
Yeah,
Portugal.
It's Iberia. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
John Jacob Astor, the Astor family comes from Astoria, which got subsumed. The amount of power and wealth, the more I keep leaking, I'm like, yeah, they're everywhere, but
they're everywhere. And they love to name stuff. They love to name stuff in America about. So he said there's an Iberia, Louisiana.
I got the mixture.
It's called New Iberia.
I'm not mad at it. It is what it is. You know, I got
that
mixture, that Aboriginal, that Iberia thing. You know what I'm saying? We got the thing going on.
And finally, let's go one level deeper on these Iberians. Let's go about. Well, how about the Basque? We still can't figure out the
Basque.
out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, I can do another show.
We're going to do another show. Vizcaya, all this stuff in Florida has been named. We think it's Spanish. It's Basque.
Yeah. See, you and Matt gonna be able to go on a whole. So look, let me reel y'all in. Let me reel y'all in.
But keep blaming it on the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants.
Yeah.
You got here last. We got here last.
Yeah, that's a fact.
He got there last.
Yeah, we got.
I mean, even the white Catholics were coming before us because they're getting driven out.
Shit.
Yeah.
So
the Portuguese, they're right. They're everywhere but nowhere. They're in power but powerless. Yeah, it's amazing.
All right, so look, get him back. Let's get him. Hey, that's another series. That's
a whole other series.
We're going back with that one since we just did that. Just to let y'all know.
So look, so just so for the audience, this will probably be the last video of this series. So if y'all come in the chat in the comments later, let us know what y'all want to see us cover. You know what I mean? We'll take some guidance from the people, and we'll take it from there. But let me go ahead and do my moderator thing. Let's get to this next video real quick. All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this video 4. Hold on.
Bank was an economic hit job on Aboriginal American Indians' financial and landed wealth. One member of the board of trustees of this bank was a Garrett Smith. Turns out Garrett Smith is a steward representing the interest of hidden families. Let's take a look at Mr. Smith. His father, Peter Smith, was born in 1768. By 1810, he controls millions of Northwest acreage in real estate, earning $150 million in modern money just from quit rent mortgages. That's who his partner was, John Jacob Astor. That's right. In 1800, Mr. Astor makes $250,000 a year. You know what that equals today? $6 billion. $6 billion a year. John Jacob Astor was making, exporting beavers to London and China. His company, Astoria, still has a town named after it in Oregon today. Astoria has roots to an ancient small kingdom in Spain called Astoria, which had a major city called Astorga, which is a major silver mining location. By the time he died in 1848, John Jacob had $20 million, which is the equivalent of $680 billion. Let's talk a little bit about their silent backer. Astor's Dutch cousins, the Van Staphorst, were Amsterdam bankers who floated American Revolutionary War bonds to Europe. Plus, they had the old silver company of Astorga, Spain. Meanwhile, up the Hudson River sits the Van Rensselaers. They were Dutch patroons, as in patricians, as in paternalists. Okay, we're talking about high-end elite noble families who had 999-year leases on the docks of the Hudson rails in the river around New York. How does Astor and Peter Smith get this business going in the fur trade in the Northwest? They plant Astoria on the Columbia River, but they need money. Well, Peter Smith uses the frontier acres that he has as collateral to get cash. So how does this covenant and trust system work? So the trust has three players. It has the grantor. In this case, it's going to be the ancient family behind the scenes that probably conquered or really kind of controls or wants to own the underlying real estate and the income that's going to come from that. Then you have the executor. That's going to be the day-to-day managers and executives of this amount of money because it's tied up into so many businesses and investments. Okay, these are your banks and your law firms. The third type of person is the beneficiary. The beneficiary could be obviously the grantor, can also still receive some benefit. Also, the current stewards who they've assigned to shepherd and oversee these assets that are in the trust for a while, at least as the public face of the assets. All right. So you kind of have within the trust a covenant with a set of rules. And basically, if the beneficiaries behave according to those rules, follow those rules, they'll get the income streams. If they don't get them. Typical symbolism about trusts and covenants would be things like the Ark of the Covenant, which we always obviously have among ancient Israel, but also they had an ark among the Khans that they carried around. There's also the Arch de Triomphe, right? The arches of triumph that you see all around the world, and you see them in the United States at many universities. Every sandstone arch on a university quad is a billboard for a private covenant. Family name is typically carved in the stone of the arch. Meanwhile, the trust papers are locked in the vault back in an ark that is hidden. So is it any surprise that on the campus of RPI, which is Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which is a very prestigious engineering school, that it has Arc de Triomphes, okay, Arches of Triumph with the VR engraving on it. So with these covenants and trust in mind, you can see why Garrett Smith inherits 500,000 acres of land in New York, while his father, Peter Smith, magically has millions of acres in the Northwest. Meanwhile, John Jacob Astor is the biggest landowner in New York for a while, and that's what you see behind me. The three main people in this story, Smith, Van Rensselaer, and Astor, look how much of New York together they own. He gave a bunch of land away to free black people in New York that behaved morally. It was part of this temperance movement thing. Okay, well, the 1896 U.S. Geological Survey calls the soil of that grant knife scrape pod soil, acidic, sterile, frost prone. 2 inches of topsoil, 120 frost-free days if the sun's feeling generous. In other words, he gave them crappy land in a hard-to-farm climate, and yet he gets a lot of press for that. All right. Worse than that, Garrett Smith's lawyers had already sold the timber liens to a lumber syndicate before these free black settlers even got to take hold of the land. Okay. By 1880, fewer than one grantee in 10 still held title. Most parcels went down for unpaid taxes and then were flipped to other companies at pennies per stump, meaning they would get to buy the land back from these settlers who were foreclosing because they couldn't make enough money to pay the taxes. These guys get it back at a lower price than they sold it to the black settler, and then they resell it. So you see they're constantly remaking profit off the same asset. So even prior to the Freedmen's Bank debacle, in which he was a trustee, right, Garrett Smith already had a history. So let's talk about Garrett Smith's role in the Freedmen's Bank. That's right. His autograph is on the charter. But a fun fact, this is only visible on one microfilm reel. The depositor ledgers are online, but the trustee votes stay buried. That's right. They have the documentation. They have notes. They have meeting notes. They are stored away on a microfiche, buried in the bottom somewhere in Washington, D.C. 1872, Smith and his fellow trustees plunged $2 million into junk Alabama Chattanooga Railroad bonds, paying 8%. High yield, high doom. What happens is these high yield bonds are not secured like other bonds are by underlying assets or anything like that. So when these railroads went bankrupt, they no longer paid any of the dividends or even the principal amount of the bonds back. So that's how they destroyed the deposits of the Freedmen's Bank. And that sets them up to then have all the fires at the banks that burn all the titles to land. And that sets them up to take over the land, divide it up, and begin asset sales at super discounted prices. Meanwhile, these trustees, as acting as receivers, would take over the land and the titles, okay? And then they would sell it at auction to big buyers. 26,000 Southern acres were sold to a company of a Union general who got the money and the financing from J.P. Morgan in order to purchase these tracts. To give you a sense of how much they profited on confiscating the Southern land, okay, this is just one example. One Southern cotton tract, they seized it and paid 47 cents an acre at a bankruptcy auction. They sell it for $12 an acre 20 years later. This would be the Swain Morgan Syndicate Corporation that was buying these Southern lands during Reconstruction. All these titles end up in these trusts managed by these banks and law firms, and the descendants of these people receive income statements, income into their private accounts. Well, I hope you found this interesting as we delve into the role that these stewards of the trust and the covenants that exist among these aristocratic ancient families and the set of rules that they're playing by are in these arcs. Handsome History out.
All right. So in relation to this, let's take it to, so I want to start with Travis, and I want you to break down the Dawes Act. So I want people to understand it's also called the General Allotment Act. Okay. So explain to the people why the Dawes Act was so detrimental to the indigenous population.
Okay. So just so you know, I haven't done a deep dive personally on the Dawes Act, so I don't want to sit here and say.
No, it's all good. We got your back. You say what you know.
But I understand like what happened conceptually. Yeah, I've read it because I've followed other people like yourself. So to me, there's a few things that go on with that act. Well, first of all, you got to get personal, like who these people are. Dawes is a big family. There's another Dawes doing some horrible stuff over like in India in the 1800s. Okay, so I tracked them a little bit. Like they do go back to Great Britain, but again, they're part of this corporate trust kind of corporate family dynastic trust that banks and lawyers just managing the money in the perpetuity. And these guys like the Dawes, they're real operators. I mean, he already had done some stuff in his previous career in America that set him up for this. But then there's also the brother or a supposed brother doing some similar stuff over in India at the same time. So the point I just want to make, man, is like these guys are trained for this. They're given these different assignments. That's why they execute so well a lot of times. Like, wow, that was vicious. Yeah, they're like the Terminator. So I just want to keep that in mind who this Dawes guy is. He's not just some working class guy that worked really hard. I mean, he's coming from big time money. They've done this type of stuff to other people around the world before. That's what these guys are trained in. All right. So what I noticed about the Dawes Act, though, is that's the time when they begin to really force you to become a black citizen, or you got to go on a reservation.
Yes, sir.
And this is like where the real erasure psychologically and everything really begins, because they're tying that to, of course, they've allowed the KKK to run rampant, and they've created the Southern Black Codes, which were created after they had Black Codes everywhere else. So just so everybody knows that sequence of events. You did not have Black Codes, and you didn't have a paramilitary terrorist group running around chasing melanated people in the South prior to the Civil War. And I don't think you're going to find one even nobody's going to ever try and just, go again with what I just said. It didn't exist. All right. They didn't even have like militias. You can read stories about they were like, oh, I guess we got to train people how to fight. Yeah. This whole thing about the South as being warrior-like is actually, like everything else, turned on its head. But Dawes is basically 30 years later, right? So you have a generation and a half, right? Since the Civil War, you've moved so many people off the territory, but you still have Black people doing really well. Remember, you have going on in Tulsa, right?
Right.
Everywhere the Freedmen were able to coalesce and put together. Now, here's the other thing that would annoy the new system is they would form corporations, but they would be more like what we think of as co-ops.
Yeah.
They were doing it in ways that were still communal and not getting with the system of like 40 acres. And nowadays we all live on 1 acre. So like they've subdivided us so much now, like, you know what I mean? So that is, I think, also the economic part of the Dawes Act is we finally got these guys, we got to hamstring them. Like, this is the final thing. We got these Black laws in place. They won't be able to get employment. They won't be able to get land, and if they don't like that, then they can go be on a reservation. But that they're not the ones that ever wanted to be on it. That's the whole thing. Plus, they already had a chance. You have the whole thing after the Civil War where most of the tribes don't want to take them in, which points out another thing about their different set of people. At least by that point, they're looking at you like they didn't want to dilute their shares in the joint tenants in common trust that the way the tribes on reservations are allowed to set up. So you got to, so think about it. They're like, nobody who's already on a reservation is really interested in taking in new people, unless, of course, they're bringing a business or capital, right? Because other than that, you're diluting your shares. Now you got all these new white guys coming in. And just so you know, the most amount before the Civil War is like 150,000 immigrants. 2 years later, it's up to 248. So that's how quick, boom, and then you're up to 300 and 400. So you're bringing all these guys in, right? And you're trying to, figure out, like, what do we do with these three? Of course, everybody's starting to scatter, Chicago, Oklahoma, and all that. That's a lot of the response. But the Dawes Act to me is like, okay, we figured out exactly how we're going to do this for like the next 100 years. And now we got it. You're Black or you're a Native American. Did it even offer them Indian at that point? I can't remember. If
they was getting rid of Indian.
Right. So Indian's gone, right? And now you're either Native American, right, on a reservation, or now you can be a Black. And of course, they got all these Blacks. So they're basically making you into a second-class citizen at that point. Correct. That's like the real point of official second-class citizenship for anybody melanated and not on a reservation, I would say. That's kind of like it's really going on, like hardcore. Like, this is it.
You got it. We need more of our people to know that, but
and that's 30 years later, right? I think it's 1895 or so when that goes down. So we're talking. So think about that again. It took them 30 years after that war to actually get to that point. Again, it just shows you the strength, I would say, and the power of this group. I call it the third group. It's like the unaligned,
the maroons.
With the maroons. You didn't get with the program of the civilized tribes that they kept built, right? Because everywhere they went, so it's like, okay, you're the guys that didn't get aligned. You didn't get aligned with the corporation of the United States, how it wanted to do business, and
we got written out.
That right. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, but it took 30, right? And then of course that's the real rise, right, of the hooligan, that the white people, like, literally.
Yeah. That's when white supremacy started.
Now it's really all bets are off. The violence takes off in the 1890s, 1900s, right? It kind of after World War I, it dies down some, but there's that's when it's really. So I'm not an expert on it, so I don't want to talk to you.
No, that was a good explanation.
That's my take on it.
That's
Matt, what you got?
Well, he went into the Dawes Act, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So his videos, y'all go to TikTok and watch his joints. You know what I mean? We ain't gonna be able to play all of them tonight, obviously, right? You know what I'm saying? But I think he covered a good ground for us to understand some things what he just even broke down there. So within the Dawes Act, you got the Curtis Act. You know what I'm saying? That extended the Dawes Act. You know what I'm saying? And this guy right here, though, when I say Curtis Act, I don't want y'all to get confused, but I want to show this guy Curtis, because the Curtis situation is Curtis. So JP Morgan, Travis, you brought up JP Morgan and obviously financially what he got going on and all that stuff right there, right? So this guy right here is paid by JP Morgan. All right. This guy by the name of Curtis, well, I see a last name Curtis, Edward Sheriff Curtis. You know what I mean? Time frame. You see them? Now,
what's that middle name?
Sheriff.
Sheriff Curtis.
Oh, come on. Wow. Okay.
Now, this guy is paid by JP Morgan to photograph ethnologists.
I got it.
You know what I'm saying? The American West and Native American people.
That's his assignment. Got it.
Yes.
It's his assignment.
He's,
you know what I'm
he's
saying?
part of the trust. He's part of the Morgan overall
Correct.
trust.
Yes.
JP Morgan's paying him to take the pictures of now who is the what we call the phenotype of what American Indians are.
The face of it. This is propaganda.
Right. That's
this guy right here.
The Asiatic look.
Yes, sir.
The dominant. Of course.
Correct.
Of course. That's what I as a kid. That's what I thought as a kid. Absolutely.
We all
it
did.
Works. It works.
Cowboys and Indians and all them pictures that came about with the whole look. You know what I mean? That's
But
he's the man that JP Morgan paid.
That's what threw me off. Black Indian outlaws. I could never figure what that meant until now. I understand what that meant.
Black,
you know what I mean? Like
maroons.
Yeah, right. But then, right? It's like okay.
So within that, right? Because the dude right here I got here, and everybody going to do the research. I put it there for anybody to go look him up. You know what I'm saying? He's tied to that. You know what I mean? JP Morgan, he paid this guy though. And the amount of money, and I'm trying to find it because I got so many notes here. So I'm trying to keep my mind on point. But either way, JP Morgan, Edward Curtis, and the construction of the Indian lineage, 1897 to 1908. That's when the damage is being done. JP Morgan, through his funding of North American Indian Project, commissioned photographer Edward S. Curtis, who's on the screen, to capture authentic images of Native Americans. Curtis photographed primarily Plain tribes and relocated groups west of the Mississippi, many of whom were not same populations as the original dark-skinned, heavily mixed southeastern groups of people that were already there. And it says, Curtis also heavily staged and romanticized the photos. He removed signs of Western dress and modernity. He sometimes darkened and altered the photos to match preconceived noble savage archetype. These curated images became the standardized government-backed representation of American Indians, especially in the Southeast, effectively erasing what you just said, Travis, the actual Aboriginal, what they call looking like Negro black people that were tied to the original tribes in that area, which is tied to the Dawes rolls coming into this real quick. I want you to tell me what you think about this. You know what I mean? Because you said the Dawes Act. That's why I think you're really on point. It says the Dawes rolls from 1898 to 1914, the Dawes Act, 1887, and Curtis Act, 1898, broke up tribal lands in Indian Territory, Oklahoma, and required individuals to enroll to receive allotments. Obviously, you just broke down the Dawes rolls from 1898 to 1914. It says by blood. This is where the one drop rule comes into play. You know what I'm saying? This is where the term freedmen, which is usually dark-skinned people are being tied to this terminology. It says many Southeastern descendants, even with tribal lineage, were forced onto freedmen roles or left out entirely, while Curtis photographs promoted a new, more Euro accepted image of Indians. This guy right here. Now, JP Morgan paid this man right here, right? Now, what crazy part though, the Curtis Act is tied to a man by the name of Charles Curtis. So I'm gonna get this real quick out the way for everybody, because y'all might not know that the Curtis Act is not tied to this Curtis. You know what I'm saying? And Charles Curtis that we're talking about is basically tied to what we call Topeka, Kansas. His mother's name is Ellen Papan, or Papan, part of the Kaw, Kaw, Kansas, without the S, tribe, the Osage, and the Potawatomi. Shout out to John Brown, he's up there in that area, and descended from the French Creole traders. Yeah, they were mixed with the Creole. This is tied to the French Louisiana Territory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From 1803 when America took it over. So Father, though, was Orrin Curtis, a British colonial ancestor. So he's mixed. He's a mulatto, as we would call him. You know what I mean? And it says grew up in the Carr Reservation, but he comes along later on. We'll get to him, because he grew up called Indian Charlie. You know all them good names he had as growing up as a kid, right? But he ended up serving on U.S. Representative of Senator for Kansas, the actual state, and later became the Vice President of the United States from 1929 to 1933 under Herbert Hoover, the first person to acknowledge Native ancestry to hold that office. Now, authored and sponsored the Curtis Act of 1898, which extended the Dawes Act to the 5 civilized tribes, abolished tribal governments and courts unless they accepted U.S. authority, enforced allotments, communal lands into individual parcels, opening up the surplus land to white settlers and speculators.
Yeah.
That Travis been breaking down. I'm a land there. This is a lot. The Homestead Acts and all that come about, but yeah, it's it's a lot here. I ain't gonna do that right now.
So it's all good. We got an alley-oop. So we got somebody come in the chat. He says this is the first live caught, but I hope this ain't Wikipedia, or am I missing something? So yeah, you are missing something, because we're using Wikipedia to simply break down a biography of a person who really existed. So why would we use anything else but Wikipedia? It ain't that deep. I don't know why everybody wants you to go to the Harvard Law Dictionary.
Dude, I can do that for
about, like, come on, bro. But I got something that you won't find on Wikipedia, so don't even worry.
Can I just say? I just want to say
go
one
ahead,
thing
go ahead,
at
Travis.
the very end. Again, this is a really key economic point. They forced I didn't know this, so they forced them onto individual small parcels of land.
Right.
See, so what was still going on is there was still this communal sharing, right? So you come and who owns the land? Well, like 200 members of
the
family.
Right.
Yeah, and that's not what these guys want to deal with.
It doesn't fit the system.
The whole thing is divided up and sell 100 mortgages instead of one. Like, put it in your head today. Imagine like getting together, like just imagine one county, everybody having equity and being like, okay, we're going to build all the homes at one time, get a big bulk purchase discount, and then we're going to go to the bank with all of our collateral at one time and get lower interest rate. They can't have that.
Right.
They can't have that
bad for
going
business.
on. Yeah, that's the medieval guild town system that I'm starting to do videos on, so people can see there was a whole other way of doing it. And it wasn't equality like they try and scare everybody with all that. It was very sophisticated and corporate. It was just that they were organized in a way that if you're a member of the tribe or a member of however you're defining the community, maybe it's just an extended family, you're born into being a beneficiary of it. Even if you're just the cook, even if you're just all these things we say nowadays, you're not skilled, you're doing your job, you're going to get taken care of. That's all I can say. I'm just going to sum it up. That's what it was.
No, that's perfect. So for everybody who stuck around to the end, we're gonna leave you with a treat. So some of you may be asking, okay, so we get it. They came and they did this with the Freedmen Bureau. They usurped the land through this banking system. They did all these reclassifications. So what was the end goal? So the end goal is what we're gonna break down now. So first, we're gonna start. We talked about the Civil War, why this happened, the financial implications, right? So then we talked about the reclassification. So now we're going to tell you what was the end goal of this reclassification. So we're going to start here. All right. So first, I'm going to put the link in the chat for people like La Tierra, because I want you to read. We ain't trying to be funny. We just, when people hit at us, we hit back because, this is what we do. It's fun. So right here, this is from June 13th, 1967. It's a congressional record in the House. Okay. So I'm sending y'all the document so you can go read it all for yourself. It's in the chat right now. So you can see no cap in our rap. All right. But I'm going to read a specific passage from this because I want y'all to understand that the 13th and the 14th Amendment was the final nail in the coffin to erase the indigenous population. Okay. And this is how they did it. So this is telling you, this is from 1967 when they were reviewing what happened with the 14th Amendment. So y'all walking with me. This is not when the 14th Amendment passed. This is after the fact when they're speaking on it. So this is what it says. I'm gonna try to blow it up a little bit more for y'all, but like I said, y'all got the link in the chat. You can come read it. So it says a concurrent resolution to expose the unconstitutionality of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, to interpose the sovereignty of the state of Louisiana against the execution of said amendment in this state, to memorialize the Congress of the United States to repeal its joint resolution of July 28, 1868, declaring that said amendment had been ratified, and to provide for the distribution of certified copies of this resolution. Whereas the purported 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution was never lawfully adopted in accordance with the requirements of the United States Constitution, because 11 states of the Union were deprived of their equal suffrage in the Senate in violation of Article 5, when 11 southern states, including Louisiana, were excluded from deliberation and decision in the adoption of the joint resolution proposing said 14th Amendment. Said resolution was not presented to the President of the United States in order the same should take effect. As required by Article 1, Section 7, the proposed amendment was not ratified by 3/4 of the states, but to the contrary, 15 states of the then 37 states of the Union rejected their proposed 14th Amendment between the dates of its submission to the states by the Secretary of State on June 16, 1866 and March 24, 1868, thereby nullifying said resolution and making it impossible for ratification by the constitutionally required 3/4 of such states. Said southern states, which were denied their equal suffrage in the Senate, have been recognized by proclamations of the President of the United States to have duly constituted governments with all the powers which belong to free states of the Union, and the legislatures of seven of said southern states had ratified the 13th Amendment, which would have failed of ratification but for the ratification of said 7 southern states. And whereas the Reconstruction Acts of Congress unlawfully overthrew their existing governments, removed their lawfully constituted legislators by military force, and replaced them with rump legislators, which carried out military orders and pretended to ratify the 14th Amendment. And whereas, in spite of the fact that the Secretary of State in his first proclamation on July 20th, 1866, expressed doubt as to whether 3/4 of the required states had ratified the 14th Amendment, Congress nevertheless adopted a resolution on July 28, 1868, unlawfully declaring that 3/4 of the states had ratified the 14th Amendment and directed the Secretary of State to so proclaim. So what is this saying? This is saying that the 14th Amendment, which created federal citizenship, not state citizenship, the same way that the National Banking Act created federal banking and not state banking. So when they created the 14th Amendment, the same people that were indigenous now became federal citizens under the District of Columbia because of the 14th Amendment. And they told us it was because of the freed slaves. But we already broke down that these slaves didn't need to be freed because they were not captive Africans. These were people participating in their own free will under common law through their states' rights to participate in commerce and live the way that they wanted to live. But under this federal citizenship that came through the 14th Amendment, it changed everything. So the North and these bankers sit down new Republicans appointed by the military to take over and pass the 13th and 14th Amendment, even though the Southern states didn't agree. But propaganda tells us that these were white people taking over black people, and that was not the case. No matter what the race was, the people in the South did not want to be beholden to these banks. So this is proof right here on congressional record that they bucked against the 14th Amendment. Now, the reason why they bucked against the 14th Amendment has to do with something called the incorporation doctrine. Okay. So when they created the 14th Amendment, all right, it took away your state's rights. And it made you you went from a state citizen that operated under the Constitution to a federal citizen that operated under maritime law through commerce clauses and codes. So the way they did that was by the incorporation doctrine. We're going to put that in the chat. Once again, we show all our sources. And if you want to debate, you know what time it is. But that's a different show. But the incorporation doctrine is a constitutional doctrine through which parts of the first 10 amendments of the United States Constitution, known as the Bill of Rights, are made applicable to the states through the due process clause of the 14th Amendment. Okay, so this is telling you that the 14th Amendment incorporated certain Bill of Rights, but not all the Bill of Rights. So when you hear people say, hey, we're not operating under the Constitution right now, technically they are not wrong, because a federal citizen does not have the same privileges and immunities that a state citizen had, because a state citizen applied directly to the Constitution, whereas a 14th Amendment citizen has incorporated certain rights from the Bill of Rights. So what are those? This is it right here. So when you are a 14th Amendment citizen, you get full incorporation to the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and the Eighth Amendment. But you get partial incorporation to the Fifth and the Sixth. And then the Third and the Seventh aren't even included in your federal citizenship. But they're missing two others, the Ninth and the 10th. They're not included in your federal citizenship either. This is why right now, if you want to go fish, you need a fishing license, right? A state citizen wouldn't need a fishing license. That's unconstitutional to require that. You shouldn't have to pay a water bill. Water is a communal right, okay? But when you are a federal citizen, you have to do these things. So the reason why they wanted to get rid of indigenous living is because if you are not a taxpayer, then you can't contribute to this federal citizenship. All right. So the Ninth and the 10th Amendment that they left out of this incorporation. So I'm trying to make it as simple as possible while giving y'all some real game. So Freedmen Bank happens. You lose your land. You reclassify and you lose your indigenous status. Now, these people who are not indigenous, the system can call them whatever they want to call them. So they call them American slaves that are now African slaves that are now 14th Amendment citizens. A 14th Amendment citizen is a lower class citizenship than a state citizen. This is why they got rid of state banks. Okay, I'm trying to make sure y'all follow us here. So then when you become a 14th Amendment citizen, you don't get all 10 of your Bill of Rights that come from the Constitution. You get a certain subset that they created. Now, this is from Cornell Law. This ain't homeboy with the news speaking. This is from Cornell Law. So if you want to debate, you go debate them. So they're telling you right now which of the Bill of Rights were incorporated into 14th Amendment citizenship, but they left out two of the most important ones. So here's the 9th Amendment. Let me blow this up because I want y'all to see this for the playback. The 9th Amendment is the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So basically, this was a catch-all that says that, hey, just because we didn't put it in the Constitution doesn't mean that you don't have it as a right. Now, obviously, if I want to control you, I cannot allow you to have this 9th Amendment as part of your 14th Amendment citizenship. All right. Now, y'all walk with me now. Now, this is from the Constitution website, constitution.congress.gov. Once again, this is not my opinion. And we noticed that the 9th was not included on the incorporation. So then we go to the 10th Amendment. It says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Okay, so this shows you that the states had a higher standing than the federal government. The earlier founders of America were trying to make sure that the federal government never had more power than the state, because the state was constituted of the actual people of America. But when they created the 14th Amendment citizenship, people became persons. A person is corporate fiction. Now, you'll hear people out here saying sovereign citizen and all this. You can't be a sovereign citizen because those two don't go together. But what you could be is a state citizen who was usurped by federal citizenship via the 14th Amendment. So what we're trying to tell you is that the reason why they wanted to take the land and reclassify the people is because they needed a way to bring you into 14th Amendment citizenship. And the reason why it was never fully ratified is because the South knew this. So they did not want to play ball with this because it would have killed their whole way of life. So this is why the whole Civil War came out and the propaganda came to demonize the South and create this friction between white people, black people. But the whole truth of the matter is, it don't matter if you white, black, Asian, whatever the case may be. If you are ignorant and do not know, your ass is going to be a 14th Amendment citizen. So what we trying to show y'all is this is way bigger than your skin color, bro. We all been played and fed Michael this Jackson, false history. You feel me? It does not matter. So once again, you ain't going to find this on Wikipedia. And if you want to challenge that, you come holler at me and Mac. We already had $1,000 offer on the table. If you feel like you can take us down, this don't got nothing to do with Travis. So let's not get that misconstrued. But just understand that this was all done systematically. And there's a lot of layers to this. And we're trying to walk y'all into it as easily as possible. But we need some of y'all to step up the game because we tired of talking about the African. That's simple shit.
We don't want to hear that shit no more. See, my friend.
We got to get to the bigger. So go ahead, Matt. Go ahead and end this off. You and Travis. I just want to make sure they heard that.
I mean, I'm going to let the guest go first based on what you just said. Let him reply to what you just read. I mean, Travis, what you think about all that right there?
Yeah, well, first of all, another thing I haven't deep dove on before, man, really, well, what to me, like, again, the underlying economic is you see the common thread. They want to break up communal ownership of land, the whole thing is always driving towards two parents and their kids. That's the economic unit. That's the, like, what's the household economic unit all about? Why couldn't it be the family economic unit, right? And you could pay taxes like your whole, you know what I mean? That's what they were wanting to destroy, right? And the South still had, again, that they were, I guess what was going on, listening to you then, is the state governments were allowed to have these types of ownerships.
Correct.
And I guess at some point, that was like the crux of the matter, right up
north.
And so how are we going to go after them? And it finally became war. Guys, this is exactly what they do in England, Great Britain, I should say, in the 1500s.
It was the same thing.
Communal shit. Yeah, they call it now, if you ever are in like a business class or something in college, and they're going to tell you about the tragedy of the commons. They indoctrinate people like me who went to when they tell me that it was tragic, it was it's always a tragedy if you allow people to have common ownership. Well, that's basically what they want to instill in every mind, that like, oh, I want to get into business and understand economics. One of the first, they're going to tell that to you like as a freshman, and you're going to have to unwind that. Isn't that crazy? And I have videos where I call it the tragedy of the commons is that they eliminated them. And so you can draw this line from like the early 1500s, the Protestant takeover of England, Cromwell, the English Civil War, which gets you to the middle 1600s. But King Charles I was also executed because he kept rejecting acts of enclosure. They had to submit. The lord that owned the whole county, they had to get together. There's 5,000 separate legislations of enclosure. That's how they set it up. So this goes on piecemeal over like 200 years. And King Charles I, who's Catholic, more of an ancient family, the communal sharing, clan-based system, all this, can't have it. Now, who's setting up in the South? Well, a bunch of people that were originally set up by who? The Stuarts, right?
Correct.
And you also and a bunch of Catholics. A bunch of Catholics in Louisiana.
Protestant,
Catholic, in the Catholic way. So it's it's just interesting that they were doing it this old way, and you still see it. I never had thought about these amendments that way. It's like, oh, okay, I got you. The only way to really eliminate it is you got to take the power away from the state legislators.
Yes.
And forbid. So everything we're talking about is actually like illegal
recent.
now, I guess is what I'm saying.
Crazy.
Like we wanted to set up like a guild, like go read what a medieval guild corporation was, and say, okay, let's all put our money in. We're going to set up a town here. We're going to run it like a guild. Like we're going to regulate immigration. We're going to start with one baker, and we're only going to have a second baker if it looks like we need more bakers. Like that's how they actually did stuff forever, guys, until they came up with free labor and mobility and blah, blah, blah. And it only really works out for them because they can move everybody around, and once they put them in desperate situations, which that's the other part. You got to put everybody in desperate situations. Then you
got to create the problem to give them the solution.
Yeah, and it's a half-butt solution, right? But it's like, oh, look, we're helping you. It goes on over and over again. It's really literally the design. It's all by design, So I'll stop at that. But man, it just points out the I don't want to be too simplistic, but so much of this is like there was another way of doing things that had a lot more what you might call redistribution of the wealth or sharing of the wealth. And it's not just American Indians. You see the same thing going on even in Europe. And I know we all, many swarthy Europeans, I get that. But even
Catholic,
even the light-skinned guys were buying into it. Like in a sense, like who would not buy into it unless you're like, and even if you're born into that, you probably should have some sense of empathy and be like, yeah, I mean, let's give a little more, right? Like, I'm good. I got 5 houses, whatever. Yeah. This is we live under a very different, we don't realize how different it's huge. And that's why so many millions of people died in all, England, America, like, this is what they saw coming. I'm just saying, like, this is what they died.
They saw it coming.
They
knew what was coming.
We live in. Yeah, I'm just
right.
To Coombs, it was like, I'd rather die, my kids die, than that.
Deal with this system. Yeah,
probably. That was just thinking. Anyhow, there you go.
Well, I appreciate that.
Have a good night, everybody.
On closing note, I ain't gonna really add on too much, like, because the build was what the build is. We've been here. So I'm just gonna say I appreciate everybody that tapped in with us. Shout out to the party, the autonomous way. You already know what it is. Marana to y'all. It's the maroon way. You see, I'm in the maroon chair. We rocking. You heard me? Appreciate y'all be tapping in for real though. Monte, you already know what it is. Shout out to our special guests. You know what I'm saying?
It is the maroon.
You know what I mean? So you see, I'm in the maroon chair. I'm rocking. Yeah.
I just want you guys to know I get that now. I didn't get that when I was a kid. I read some of the book, I'd pick up a book written in the 1800s, and it's like some little white family on a mission, and of course the black guys in maroon helping them out. Like every time. Then as I studied, I was like, oh wait, they
get it now.
And then I figured out, wait, these guys are actually already here, and they've just now been put. It's like but the way the words are, like you can sense how everybody is getting either indoctrinated in an era or a decade, and or what the the editors are doing or what the censorship is, because it's you see it. Like they had their political correctness too. Is what I guess I'd say. Yeah,
no,
can't call them Indians. You gotta call them Maroons.
Right. I like Maroon better. You know what I'm talking about, because of the whole situation of we autonomous. We should say, without saying we rebellious. We understand today we got the access to the 1st, the 9th, and the 10th Amendment. You know what I'm saying? Wow, we understand that we now just have to apply ourselves in an autonomous way amongst those have like-minded understanding of their heritage and certain things, and want to be able to take full understanding of what their heritage is tied to, because they've been marooned. Like, Martin Luther King said it, we exiled in our own land. You know what I mean? So, he got knocked off for that. But today we ain't in that position. You know what I'm saying? And we've been marooned from the Republic, if you understand what that means. You feel what I'm saying? From a lawful standpoint, you know what I mean? That's why we maroon Americans today. You know what I mean? So shout out to everybody that tapped in on the Indigenous side, on the Black and once again, the Yahudi side. You know what I mean? I always give my shout outs for both sides of the things that's happening, Black Europeans and all that, because today we in a different situation from all that colonial, you know what I mean? So it's just really for people to get more information so they can go do their research and get outside of some of the doctrinated things that they got is layered in. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, man, the harsh reality is live life autonomously. You heard me?
So I'm gonna shut it down like this. So Little Feather gave me the alley-oop for what I was gonna do anyway. She say, thanks, Monte, for jumping in and teaching us after laying your granddad to rest, sending love and light to you and your family. Hey, so I'm dedicating this to my grandfather, James Henry Jones Sr., a real deal American Indian. When he was buried, he had a cigar in his pocket. I swear on everything I love. So we really do this, Maroon Americans, and we appreciate y'all. And then thank everybody. Hey, Travis, you've been getting a lot of love in the
Thanks,
chat.
Yeah, thank you.
So your presence was definitely appreciated.
I appreciate you guys, and it's funny because I'm like, I'm like, this is like a different. It's funny. I can sense the different cultures, like it's just in the country. Even I'm like, it's just interesting. There's more of an emphasis in this culture on like receipts and like.
Correct.
Just like,
you want the facts, Travis.
It's so refreshing. I'm like, now I realize how bad it is.
It's bad. It's bad.
It's
bad. That's why you're in the maroon position.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, right. The world gets stirred up. Yeah, it's Kafka-esque, if you want. Wow, great stuff.
Shout out to everybody that tapped in, though, for real, though. We see y'all. Hey, Travis, I want to talk to you about some other topics, but there's so much more, but for this particular topic, we appreciate your content, by the way, for this part of the series that we did, part 2 and part 1. And I hope everybody gathers it, watches it, and shares it, and goes on your joint, on your joint and our joint, and just share the information, man. Until the next time, we'll see y'all, sometime in late August, fall time, school back here type shit. We coming. Y'all thought we should have.
We got more things coming. We got
a lot of things coming. You heard me? We got a lot of things coming. We've been quiet. You heard me?
We got to let it simmer for August. Simmer. And it's gonna, in the fall harvest.
Like maroons. Stuff to talk about. We've been moving. Take a move.
Hey,
for real, morality to everybody. Peace and love.
So with that being said, in the comments, y'all let us know if y'all want to cover a certain topic. Y'all let us know, and we will do it. But with
and DM me on TikTok too.
Have some history. Follow them on TikTok, subscribe, support the people that's putting out this information without an ulterior motive. We just want to, you know what I mean? It's just that simple. So with all that being said, I appreciate the love. Y'all keep it positive, keep it pushing. Travis, we out of here, bro. We'll see you next time,
Thanks,
man.
Guys. Have a good one.
All right, peace.
Some say it's just words, don't make it deep. But names are spells and the cuts run deep. How they define you, how they bind you. But truth don't sleep, who got pain. Persons are paper caught up in the game. Don't box me in, don't steal my name. I'm not just a number, I'm not their shame. People rise up, speak what you know. You're not a person, you're a soul that glows. No barcode, no chain, no check in the file. I'm walking with grace, I'm walking with style. I'm not a thing in a courtroom slide. I'm the people and I won't be denied.